Hey, what's up guys, this is Zola, and today I'm going to be taking a break from my montage tutorials to give you what I want to call a masterclass, although I'm obviously nowhere near being a master at any of these programs, but a masterclass in terms of me showing you how the program works in more depth than I did in my introduction to video for the CS6 Illustrator. Which is by far and away my most popular tutorial. So I know people out there desperately want to learn this program, and I can see why people would want to watch the tutorials, because this program is quite confusing if you don't exactly know how it works, and there are a few kind of gotchas that you have to get used to. So what I've created here is an RGB document. You can see it here. You can switch between RGB and CMYK here. If I click document setup, you have a load of complicated menus which you don't want to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, and what happens is if you press Command N, you get this dialog. And so I have one artboard. I'm at A4 size. You can make it portrait or landscape by clicking on this little man. We're going to stay portrait. I'm working at RGB. Those are those options there. And at screen resolution, if you want to go into print, I would select CMYK as the colors, and high as the 300 ppi, so that'll look pristine when it comes to printing. But what we're going to do is stay in RGB. Also, if you're in CMYK and you import like any of these things into After Effects, sometimes you get kind of the colors changing slightly, so it's best to stay in RGB if you're going to be working with any kind of animation. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's just going to take us back to where we were. Today, in this first masterclass, I'm just going to be going down some of the main features of the left panel and how the program basically works. So those of you who aren't familiar with what Illustrator does, I explained this in my other video, but I'm going to explain it again. If I zoom in here to this shape, I am here at 4800%, and as you can see, the edge here is still perfectly smooth. If you did this in Photoshop, you would get pixelating and blockiness. That's basically because everything that Illustrator creates is vector, which means that it's calculated mathematically, which means your file sizes are smaller, and you can scale any of the artwork you do in here to any size, providing that it was created in Illustrator and is vector. You know, if you bring in a raster image, i.e. a picture, and scale it up in Illustrator, you will still get pixelation, because by its origin that is actually a picture and not a vector. Whereas all the shapes and everything that you create directly in Illustrator are vectors. So that is the main difference between the two programs. So what I'm going to do here is, as you can see, I've made a circle, and here we have our selection tools. The top one lets you select shapes. The second one lets you select points. So you can just select individual points and move these around. If you select in the middle, you'll just select the shape. Or if you select a point, you can do this, and by grabbing these handles, for those of you who've ever used any kind of design program, there's Bezier handles, you can reshape your shape basically. Down here we have, if we hold this down, we have the pen tool, which lets you draw shapes more freehand, and then if you come back, you close the shape by going back to the point you started. Fairly simple stuff. And here you have the add point basically. Let's say, oops, we selected this, and I'm just pressing V to switch back to this selection tool, as it's really fast. So select that and come in here, hold down, and you can add points to your existing path. If you don't exactly hit that line, you'll get this kind of dialogue. So you just have to be precise, and then if you press A, you can then move that. So it just allows you more control over your shape basically. Down here we have the text tool. The text tool is changing that now you get a dialog up here, which is really useful for changing your font and such. So I can select that, and then once again go to my selection tool by dragging these corners out. We can resize it, and we can change our font up here really quickly. And if you want a more visual way, you can go up to type and font, and it will show you your font in the actual font, if that makes sense. So you know exactly what it's going to look like before you select it, which is useful. So and you have all the centralization, and you can warp these kind of things along paths and stuff. But I'm like, let's make an app. Just say okay, You can warp your font along an arc, so that's useful. I'm going to delete that because I'm just going to speed through these, if not we will get left behind. And here we have the line, arc and segment tool, so you can create a spiral. If you hold spacebar while you're making a shape, you can move it in different directions and such. When you let go, you'll have a spiral. Now that appears to have disappeared because what's happened is we have no stroke and no fill, and that brings me nicely onto this. What I'm going to do is hold this down and create a polygon tool. What it means by polygon is if I press up and down on my number pad, I can create a different number of sides. So what I'm going to do is create an octagon here, I believe. So we can't see anything right now, and that is because I'm going to bring this to the middle. We have no stroke and fill, and this is where Illustrator differentiates itself from any other program, because right now we have the option to add 3 things to the stroke and 3 things to the fill. So if I hover over these, you'll see, and the one which is in front of the other one is the one you have selected, so that's good to know. And here if I select this, I will add a solid. If I select the second one, I'll add a gradient. If I select the third one, we'll have neither. So what I'm going to do is for the fill, I'm going to select solid color. I'm going to select the gradient, the stroke, sorry, and add the gradient. And this is a new feature to CS6 in that you can now add, if I come up here and change the stroke size, you can add strokes to gradients to strokes, sorry. As you can see, Illustrator is quite clever in that it's already come up here and open this gradient dialog. If you can't see these options, you'll have it might look like this. Go to show options and you can bring this down and have a look. And basically this is a representation of your gradient, so you can choose the kind of color steps. If I double click on any of these, I get the option to basically change the colors. So what I'm going to do, make this blue. If you grab any of these and pull them down, they disappear. So we have a blue to green to white gradient. We can flip this as easy as that. We can change the gradient to radial, which isn't going to make much sense here yet, but I'm going to leave that on stroke. And then what you can do is change the angle in which the actual gradient is applied, and then you can change the, I'm going to change that back to 0. You can change the look, and this will basically kind of add this kind of, so basically the gradient will work its way around the shape rather than going from left to right. And you'll see if I change this now, nothing's going to happen. And this is another one of the little annoyances in Illustrator if you don't use it, in that you always have to have the shape selected before you change the option. And as you can see there, now the gradient is going from the inside to the outside, which looks really cool. And yeah, that's gradients, so that's simple enough. And we can apply gradients to the center as well. So if I select the middle and then select down here, we've now got a gradient on the stroke and the middle. And if you have the middle selected, the fill, we have one of the options here, which is the gradient, and you can basically change which way the gradient is applied along your shape, which is cool. And then here you can change this to radial as well, and you have dynamic control of this if you ever want to increase it, scale it, rotate it, change the middle. You can do all those things, and you have really cool kind of controls here which dynamically show you what's going on. So really useful. Once again, if you don't want it, you just click on the none. You can switch back to gradient, solid. You have control over basically 3 things on the stroke and 3 on the fill, which is really useful. Okay, so we're going to delete that. The brush tool I will touch on later, but basically it lets you draw, and this, what will get applied along this is what you have up here. So at the moment we have a uniform stroke, which means it's going to say the same width. If I select like a different width profile, let's select this one, that's not actually working. Let's scale that up, and that's because we have this here. We can change this to a kind of dotted look, and I'll explain more about the brush panel in another masterclass, but just know that that's there for now. I'm going to drag out another shape here, so let's have a look. So we have the gradient and no fill here, so I'm going to select it, change this to yellow, I guess. and change the stroke to a red or a pink. Make this bigger. Okay, so we have a shape again, so let's carry on moving down here. We have the pencil tool. I'm not really going to go into that. It kind of lets you correct your paths. It's more of an advanced thing. Same with the blob brush. It lets you kind of I'll demonstrate. It's not worth even talking about right now. We have the rotate and the scale. This is quite useful if you want to scale your shape. As you can see, it's very jumpy, so it's not ideal, but you can change the shape, and if you come here and change the crosshair, you can move where it's actually scaling from, which is cool. If I press R, now we can rotate in the same way just by dragging. If you move this crosshair, you'll rotate around that point, which it can be useful. So that's that. Then we come to what is probably the most powerful panel in this side of the screen. You have wrinkle, crystallized, bloat, pucker, which all do cool things. We have the twirl as well, but the main two you want to look at here are the shift width tool, which was introduced in CS5 basically, and you'll see as soon as you select it, make sure you have your shape selected again, and you can actually grab the corners here and scale the corners up and down to create interesting shapes. I can make this bigger, I can make this smaller. So you can see you've just basically radically changed the way that looks, and you can always bring it down if you don't like it. That's the most powerful thing about this is all dynamic and changeable, and you can bring things back if you don't like them. So we've just created, I guess that's like a sideways Master Chief helmet. Incredible work. So yeah, we've got a kind of, it just shows the way we've just changed an octagon to like a really distinctive shape, and the fact that these are dotted lines you should probably ignore right now. I'll explain more about that in another lesson. So we have that. We have the warp tool, which lets you basically just tweak your shape slightly. You can so if I wanted to slowly move these points around, I can do that, and it lets you basically just reshape your whole thing. And as you can see here, the stroke is applying itself along whichever way you move the path. So that is really powerful for just nudging your points around. And the cool thing about that is if you have two shapes, for example, if I hold Alt here and drag this out, I can make a copy. So if I have nothing selected and I do this and I push through, we can change any of these, but if I select one of them, right, so it's already selected, change back to this tool and come through, you're only going to select the one that's highlighted. Much the same for the eraser tool, which is it up here? Where is it? Here it is. As you can see, if I cut through here, what I've done here is only done that on the shape that was selected. If I select neither and do the eraser, I can come through and cut this completely in half. Now we're getting real weird results here because we actually changed the way the paths work. So what I'm going to do is just create two original shapes here so that you can gauge the difference yourself. So if I hit Shift E to bring up my eraser, what it does is it splits your path in half, and then you basically have two shapes, which obviously has its uses. And you can go on and, you know, hold Alt and drag this out and already start creating some kind of like weird designs. So that's really powerful. If you have just say this selected and you do the eraser tool and come through, it's only going to affect the one that you had selected, which is useful. So as you can see, it's not affecting that, whereas if I select nothing and run through, it's going to cut all three of them. So that's good to know. So you can basically control the area in which it works. Free transform, don't really need that. Shape builder, perspective is more advanced, we'll cover that in its own lesson. Mesh tool, very cool. What I'm going to do here is we're going to create an incredible lemon. So I'm going to scale this up. We're going to take this stroke off, so select the stroke and click no. So we just have a circle right now. We're going to come back in here. I'm going to show you how these tools work in, you know, with each other. As right now we have like a weird size brush. If I hold Alt and drag, we can change the size of this brush. And what we're going to do is just make this more lemon shaped, I guess. So there we go. It's like a lemon. It's not particularly incredible lemon, but it's a lemon. And we're going to click on this gradient mesh tool, and we're going to click anywhere on the shape, and it's going to create this thing. And you're like, what exactly is going on here? We're going to create another point here, and maybe here. And so you've no idea what's going on right now. But what happens is you can come back and select this point, and we're going to select the fill, and we're going to add like a slightly lighter tone of yellow, and you'll see what happens. As you can see, basically what it's doing is allowing you to put a custom color wherever that point is. So you can basically shade this lemon how you want, and maybe we want this part of the lemon to be more orange. Say it's on the other side of like the light source. Obviously I've exaggerated that somewhat. And you can basically add as many or as few points as you want, and as you can see there, that looks almost like it was painted or done in 3D. It doesn't look particularly good. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you take the time, you can do incredible things with this, and really make these shapes look like you worked a lot longer on them than you actually did, and you shaded them properly, and it's doing a nice fall off from one color to the other, and you can do some really nice things with that. And obviously it's all dynamic. At any point you can select your mesh tool, select one of these points, move it around, and those gradients are moving. Just make sure you're not anywhere else, or else you're going to add another line, and then you might end up doing what I just did there or there. So obviously if you move two of these points together, you're going to get a very harsh gradient, but that could work in itself as an effect. But for things like this, you probably want a more gradual fall off. Moving on, I'm going to make two circles here, and what we're going to do is I'll show you how the eyedropper works. Now in Photoshop and any other program, what it will do is literally you will grab the physical color of another shape. However, what it does in Illustrator is takes things one step further, and that we will copy the whole style of this. So here we have no stroke and a red fill. Here we have an orange fill and a purple stroke. If I select the eyedropper tool, you'll see, and I click here, it's going to copy the fact that this has a red fill and no stroke and apply that to this. So just a little gotcha, you're not just going to take the shape, you're going to take the actual style, can you see, of the shape that you're copying. So that's good to know. Now we get to one of my favorite tools, the blend tool. So I'm going to make two different shapes here. We're going to make a star, and if you hit Shift X, you can swap these two around, which is useful. So I'm going to make an orange star with a red stroke, and here we're going to make this gradient. Let's make this interesting colors. So we're going to create a gradient, and maybe we'll have, I don't know, blue stroke, but a thinner one. And what the blend tool does is literally you click on one, pop, click on the other, pop, and it will create a blend in between these two. How you work this is you come back and double click on this, and you can change the steps. You can change this to smooth color, which does this kind of thing. If you come to steps, you have direct control as to how many shapes appear in between, and you can change this on the fly. 34, let's say. So as you can see, they're pretty cool. And the thing is, if you double click into this, right, now I've selected this shape, and I can change this to maybe blue, and automatically we've not noticed much there, but if we change the color of this stroke now to like green, you'll see that that is updated automatically, and you can move this shape around and the blends will work. So yeah, just a really powerful kind of tool. And now what I have to do is come back out all the way to the top layer to get back to where I am here. And you can move these points around and it will update. what I've done there is selected the point selection tool, which is the one below. So yeah, that's really cool and infinite possibilities with that. The symbol spray I showed you in the Illustrator CS3 video, it just sprays symbols basically. Column graph tool is largely useless. The artboard tool is worth noting. So as you can see here, we have a work area, and if I create a shape, I can also bring shapes outside this area and just store them here. And although this is the area that will be printed when you go to print, you can store your elements out here, which is a really useful thing in Illustrator in case you're not sure and you want to bring them back or whatever. But this artboard here is changeable. What you can do is click on the artboard tool and you can manually bring it out, and as you can see, the actual size it is updating here. So, and then if I hit escape and come out, that is now my new artboard. What's more useful here is you can go into, like, say you're working at A4 before, right? And you come out, you're like, actually we want to change this to A3. So you go to Artboard, change this to A3, and suddenly your page has kind of scaled up to reflect that. Other things to note is you can like little guides and stuff by clicking up here. This was a lot harder to do in CS5 because this was hidden away in its own menu, but they've really done a great job in streamlining the interface for CS6. And then when you're happy, just click out or click on a tool and come back here. Slicers is more to do with web design. Hand tool is largely pointless because if you hold spacebar, you can access this temporarily. And that is the way you should be moving around all your programs in the Adobe suite. So never use the hand tool. And as for zoom, yeah, you can drag an area you want to zoom into, but if you press Command plus and Command minus, you can move out, and if you press Command 0, you always come back to 100%, which is useful. So yeah, there we have it. That was an induction into the CS6 Illustrator. If you enjoy this kind of change of pace and want me to do more of these like in the near future, then I can do that. If you guys want me to continue with the other kind of tutorial series I've been doing, then let me know with that as well. But I thought I'd throw this out there because, like I said, my other Illustrator tutorials quick start one was really popular, so I thought I'd kind of dip back into it, especially now that the program's been updated to be a lot more user friendly. So let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. You know, just thanks for supporting me, I guess, and I'll see you next time for another tutorial. Cheers.